Hey butterflies. Happy Thursday. Praying that everyone is having an amazing day, that your week is going well, that you're walking in faith and expectancy. You're expecting God to move in big ways. I know we get caught up in the natural, and what it looks like in the natural, it seems like God's not moving, but it's in the spiritual. That we need to ask the Lord to open our eyes in the spiritual so we can see how He sees. Not in the natural, because our natural is like vision is limited, and we'll get frustrated, get worked up. And I'm speaking, if not to anyone, but to myself, because I'm currently going through that right now. But we just have to remind ourselves not to look in the natural. Our vision is limited in the natural, but to look in the spiritual. So I'm praying that encourages at least one person today. So thank you so much for joining me. We're diving back into the Word. We're still in the book of James, chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. It talks about critical speech. How we use our words, right? We're to be humble, right? That was basically verses 7 through 10. Submit to God, resist the enemy, he will flee from you, right? But we need to walk in humility. So now we need to be careful, not be critical of one another, brothers and sisters in Christ. So I'm going to read from the Amplified as well as the Holman Christian Standard Bible. So verse 11 and 12. My brethren, do not speak evil about or accuse one another. He that maligns a brother or judges his brother is maligning and criticizing the law and judging the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a practicer of the law, but a censor and judge of it. One only is a lawgiver and judge. Capital L lawgiver and capital J and judge, who, capital W, is able to save and to destroy, the one who has the absolute power of life and death. But you, who are you that you presume to pass judgment on your neighbor? Have you ever done that? Your neighbor doesn't have to be like your next door neighbor, your brother and sister in Christ. Who are we to judge, right? But yet we walk around and we have a tendency to judge. I'm not going to lie to you, guilty. To walk around and judge. And like we have that right. Knowing that God has the final say. We walk in grace and mercy because that's been given to us. So we should show grace and mercy to others. And I know the flesh gets in the way and at times it's difficult. But God shows it to us every single day. So we are to show it to others. Remember, we're not walking in the flesh. And yes, again, I know the flesh gets in the way. So sometimes it's easier said than done. You don't know how I feel. You don't know what they did to me. Get it. Because same thing. But it's that reminder that no one's going to stand before us come judgment day. So we're to walk in love, walk in grace and mercy. And it's going to be challenging, but we have an example who walked this earth, Jesus. We have the example. And we have our instruction manual to guide us in how to teach us and guide us in how to do that. God knows we're going to fall short. We're not perfect. We are flesh. That's why we run back to the Father. Lord, ask for forgiveness because today I spoke ill about. Remember, you don't have to speak. It's something. If it's in your heart, remember, you've already committed murder, hatred, right? So what comes out of your mouth stems from what's in your heart. Remember, that was in Proverbs, and that just carries throughout. What comes out of your mouth stems from your heart. So from the Holman Christian Standard Version, verse 11 and 12. In the Holman Christian Standard Bible, they categorize it as a prohibition of critical speech. Don't criticize one another, brothers and sisters. Anyone who defames or judges a fellow believer defames and judges the law. If you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Only one. It's Jesus. So if we go to the commentary, y'all already know Dr. Tony Evans, he got it up in here. Verse 11 and 12. In these verses, James gives an illustration of what humility requires. It demands a change in how you speak of others. Don't criticize. Don't speak about a fellow believer with the intent of doing harm rather than providing help. The one who defames and judges a brother or sister defames and judges the law. Verse 11. How? Jesus said the great commandments are love God and love your neighbor as yourself. See Mark chapter 12, verses 28 through 31. So if you judge your neighbor, you're judging the law that commands us to love others. You're saying to God, I refuse to do that. But there is one lawgiver and judge, and you are not him. The Lord is the one who will pass judgment at the appropriate time. So who are you to judge your neighbor? Verse 12. As the saying goes, there but for the grace of God go I. That brother you criticize could have been you. As God has shown you grace and mercy, practice grace and mercy. This is still speaking about humility. So remember, James chapter 4, verses 1 through 17 discusses hostility or humility. Are you walking in humility? Are you criticizing your brother and sister in Christ? Those who are believers, are you criticizing them? It demands a change in how you speak of others. Don't criticize. Don't speak about a fellow believer with the intent of doing harm rather than providing help. So are you, like when we say constructive criticism, and there is constructive criticism. When you are giving constructive criticism, is it to help or is it to tear down? There's a way to provide constructive criticism that's going to help that person flourish in the gifts and talents that the Lord has given them. That's going to help them get to that next level. That's going to help embolden them to walk in their faith, right? And not be ashamed of what the Lord has placed in them to do. Or are you doing it because you want to tear them down, because you're afraid to see them move up? But be careful. Are your words to help or to harm? Excuse me. The one who defames and judges a brother or sister defames and judges the law. Verse 11. How? Jesus said the great commandments are love God and love your neighbor as yourself. See Mark 12:20 through 31. So if you judge your neighbor, you're judging the law that commands us to love others. You're saying to God, I refuse to do that. If you judge your neighbor, you're saying, oh, Lord, I don't want to love. I know your word says it, but I don't want to do that because. And yes, the flesh is in the way. I'm not speaking. I'm not perfect. Please know, I have fallen short. The day's not over here. So I could still probably fall short. But I'm still going to make that choice too. I don't want to defame my neighbors. I don't want to speak negative about them. I don't want to criticize them. Because who am I? Thinking I'm high and mighty, like they having issues, but there are no issues happening over here. Can't do that. Can't do that. But there is one lawgiver and judge, and you are not him. We are not Jesus. We're not standing before him. You're not going to stand before me. I'm not going to stand before you. We're standing before the one who will hold everything in account. What we say and what we don't say. So how are we using our words? And I know, again, you guys, like you said this, it keeps coming up. How we use our words. Are we helping and encouraging each other? Are we building each other up? Or are we giving harm to one another by what we're seeing? As the saying goes, there but for the grace of God go I. That brother or sister you criticize could have been you. As God has shown you grace and mercy, practice grace and mercy. Walk in grace and mercy. So we're not to criticize one another. We're not. Because then we're going around saying, I'm better than you. And that's not true. We're not to go around criticizing. If the words are coming out are not to help or to build up, then we don't say them. Because remember, what comes out of your mouth stems from your heart. So then you got to go back. You got to check your heart. How's your heart posture? Because remember, you're going to lift up prayers. And it's like, okay, but how's your heart posture? Because you just criticized your brother and sister over here. Now we're going to go into the prayer closet and we're going to lift up. Been there, done that. Not going to lie. At times that still kind of comes up. Quick to be like, oh, okay, well, I don't know why she has, but I'm the one that's trying to. I'm not going to criticize. We're going to help and encourage. Not to cause harm to any persons with our words or with our heart. We need, again, watch our words. This is called a prohibition of critical speech. To be humble. In these verses, James gives an illustration of what humility requires. It demands a change in how you speak of others. So, not just today, but for the rest of the week, the assignment is watch how you speak of others. How you speak of others shows that you're walking in humility and you're not walking in hostility. Very important. So how are we using our words? Do not criticize others. And this is for me as well, because I'm telling you, things come up, and God knows things are going to come in like, okay, Lord, but they did this and you don't know. We have a choice with how we use our words. Dr. Tony Evans says, we're going to say it back. James gives an illustration of what humility requires. It demands a change in how you speak of others. Humility demands a change of how you speak of others. How are you speaking of others? Are you showing humility or are you showing hostility? Actually, I needed that again today. I needed that. So I'm going to rewrite that in my journal again. Thank you all so much for joining me. I pray that everyone is staying safe out there. Please, if you need to go out, put your mask on. Put your mask on. Even if you've gotten the shot, wear your mask. If you're planning to get the shot or you're praying about it, do your research, okay? We want everyone to be safe. Yes, we want this pandemic to be over. We have some ways to go. If everyone does their part and we listen to the Lord about this will subside, but we have to listen to the Lord. Don't just look at the natural, it's spiritual as well. God is doing the work here, and he's revealing hearts. He's showing how we respond to things. Okay? Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys are amazing. Love you all. Be careful out there. We'll do this again tomorrow. Bye.